Welcome back to the second part of Spennymoor Moneyball series. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through all the transfers that I've completed over the last 10 seasons while at Spennymoor. And I'm going to show you how I took the club from £500, £1,000 wage budget all the way up to now, which is, have a double check for you. So that's now £4 million per week with £280 million in the balance in the overall balance. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to start in the very first season, so 1920. As you can see, in the first season we made a profit straight away. Unfortunately, there's only one player that still remains not retired in the game. That's MONEYBALL. So what I'm going to basically do is each player that I bring in each season, hopefully as it progresses, it'll be a lot easier to do so, which I imagine so it will be. But I want to show you exactly how much I spent on them, the performance for the club, and how much I made off them. And we'll kind of get an idea of selling players at the highest point, or when they're just not performing, and just trying your best to get as much maximum potential of profit for that player at the optimum time. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity where the players go on strike and stuff like that, and you lose them for like a nominal fee or whatever. But I do really think that in 75% of the cases of every single player I've had at Spennymoor, I've actually made a profit on them. Now, we'll soon find out, because that's just my perception, but here we go. So, like I first said, MONEYBALL in my first season, he was signed as a free transfer from Manchester United, and he spent 4 seasons at the club. Not too bad. Not too bad performance, but as you can see, as he progressed at the leagues, he started to find his level, as it were. So he was sold for 61,000 to Fleetwood. He now plays in Holland, and he's worth 2.5 million, as you saw before. So was that a wise choice to sell him at the time? He wasn't exactly performing well for ourselves. He was on the decline, and he's improved over time once he got more games in him. So it might have been one we missed out on there. The second season. So we've got a lot more people who have retired here as well. Second season, we also made a profit of £190. So that just shows you the actual depths of where we came from to where we are now. So 2 seasons, 2 profits. And as you can see, the only player that I think we made money on him. I know that for sure, because he was amazing for ourselves. We also made money on Ollie Shenton, but obviously that history is no longer available. So we'll look at Lawrence Gabriel. He came on a free transfer from Nottingham Forest. He was only here for 2 seasons, but he also went on a free. So no profit made. Third season, 75k. So can you see the jump up? We're moving up the actual financial table in terms of what we're bringing into the club. So this season, once again, living off free transfer signings. And we also brought in a few really good players on loan, which then pushed us to the next level of where we want to go as a club. So CJ Egan-Riley, I believe he was sold on for a better fee than what we took in originally for him, if that's correct. Ooh, 13k to Blackburn. So he jumped up an actual division from ourselves after 3 seasons. These first seasons, you will find that the fees you're bringing in, although they're only 10 grand here, 20 grand here, it's a massive, massive thing for a club like ourselves, where you're starting from the very bottom. So any sort of profit you can bring in off a signing is amazing. Whereas in the future, as you'll see, we make significant profits for the club. So Charlie Wellens, he was brought in. He was a really good player for the club while we had him here. He was sold for 65k, so average to best whilst playing for ourselves. Average at all. Very poor, in fact. I thought he played a lot more better than us for that. What we did have, what I will try and do, because there is a lot of players that we're going through here. And by the way, this is the 4th season, 75k profit. So I'm going to go through and just pick out the players who I know perform for myself. And then, sorry about that. what that'll do is that'll give us the idea of who basically the Moneyball effect worked best on. So Joe Lopez, he was brought in a left back from, I think, Arsenal maybe? Have a look. Yeah, so he was brought in from Arsenal. He was here for 1 season and he was sold for 325k to Luton. So what a difference that made to my my coffers, as it were. I know he played 30 games and he performed okay at left back, but to sell him on for 325k when you're in League Two was really, really good. He was a good player. I would have kept him, but obviously when you're getting deals offered like that, it's a no-brainer. It really is. So we saw these players here. There was no one special sold on, no one like where you thought, ooh, didn't really want to sell him. So now we're into the 4th season. I made a mistake previously. This one's the 4th season. So 700k profit and 140k spent. So this is the first time we're actually spending money on players, and this is just down to the fact that we need to obviously we're getting to a level now where we actually start making some sort of effort with purchasing players, not rather than just using the free transfer system. So first and foremost, Haji West, brought in from AFC Wimbledon. This was the player I showed you in the first episode, who went on to win Under 21 Young Player of the Year. Currently worth 8.25 million. However, we brought him in for 87k and then sold him for 22.5 million. Now, granted, his goal record was excellent while playing for ourselves, but 22.5 million, I snapped their hands off. Yeah, I think he literally just went for that fee because of the fact that he'd won that award, and I'm not too sure how he won that award, to be honest. But yeah, Cole De Silva, who brought in from Brentford on a free transfer, a very versatile player, can play both left back, right back, and to be honest, it was just a good squad player. Had him at the club on a free transfer, like I said, from Brentford, and he went on to Stoke for 1.9 million. So another one who's made a profit for the club. Really good player. The only reason I sold him was because he wasn't getting the games and he was starting to kick off a bit. Let's have a look at any other players on here which I sold for a profit that I can remember. So look at Ashby Hammond. He was brought in on a free transfer. He was a really good player for ourselves, and he was far and above performances in terms of where we were in the league. We brought him in when we were in League Two, which was ridiculous because he was a championship goalkeeper. And he had 2 seasons with ourselves. So we brought him in League One. We signed him when in League Two, and he went on to be sold for 2.6 million. So now, as you can see, these fees are increasing because of the calibre of the players are increasing. And then as you're putting 2.6 million back into the club, you're only spending 170. Finances are building, and you're replacing facilities. You put more money into recruitment, and that's the general idea of how you can improve the club. So we brought in Saul Shotton from West Brom. If I remember correctly, he was a really good player for ourselves. He's still got okay figures for a 28-year-old. Yeah, so we brought him on a free transfer and sold him on to Charlton for 235. So what you can see in the future is he's actually gone for higher fees. So I may have undersold him there. However, at the time, he wasn't getting the games from where he was, and we were just overstocked with centre back. So it was just the decision to send him on, and it paid off in that situation. Paul Hinchcliffe. So we brought him in from Manchester City, and he was great. He really was a good player. We ended up selling him on to Bristol City for 1.1 million. Considering it was a free transfer. I know where he's at now in terms of like salary and transfer status and etc. etc. But at the time, to get 1.1 million for a player which in the first season, romped it really well. Second season did okay. He was always on the decline, but he was a player, if I believe correctly. Was it himself or a different one? I mean, I think he was the first player I ever had that come out that came out as homosexual. I'm not too sure it was him or another one, but yeah, that was the first time that's ever happened to myself in games, so that was good. And I got the old boosted shirt sales, so that gives a bit more financial aspect to the game. So Daniel Aguiar, I can't even. Yeah. So he was brought in, and we actually made a loss on. So 13.75k came in first season. Excellent, really really good first season in League One. Not so good in the Championship. Found his level, and unfortunately we didn't give him a new contract. It was just a case of he just went off a cliff. He really did not improve as we went along, unfortunately. And as you can see there, you're starting to see some of the figures that lads went for. So he went for 250k. I don't think he even played a game for us to Luton, if I'm correct in thinking that. He was signed. Yeah, that's correct. So we signed him from Man City. He didn't play a single game, and he went to Luton for 250k. And his career hasn't exactly gone the best. So that was another one. I mean, this is what you got to do. You got to go through the top six clubs and look at who they're releasing each summer and getting them in on trial and just seeing if they're better than what you have, or the potential they have is better than what you have, because that is key to this money ball. You ain't gonna have a director or an owner putting in millions and millions every summer. You need to generate your own money, and that's exactly what I was doing by almost farming these players, a bit like Chelsea do, and getting as many players in as you can in order to combat the fact that you have no money. So the following season, another profit made. So this season we brought in 5 million and we spent 2.9. So let's have a look and see who our highest sign was and our highest sell was. So like I've already showed you these before. Leo Ostergaard, however, I missed him out when we did sign him. So I believe he was a free transfer. Yes, so we brought him in on a free transfer from Brighton, and we sold him the following season for 1.1 million. So another bit of good business by ourselves, in which we made a profit. Joe Wood, he was another free transfer signing, and he was sold on for 300k. Josh Vella, he was another free signing, sold on for 95k. This, I believe, is the first season in the Championship. This is when we need the better players, as it were. So Carl Brannan, he was brought in. He was a regen, yep, from Chelsea. Really, really high prospect, good stats from when he was of the age we bought him. And he was brought in for 2.3 million, and we sold him on to Bournemouth for 14 million. So that was a really good profit. I mean, he was okay without being outstanding. His last season in the Premier League was probably his best season, which it was. And that's the reason we got the 14 million. But at that time, we just had better players in his position, unfortunately. Gavin Bazanu, a wonder kid in previous saves, brought in as a first choice goalkeeper when we got rid of Luca Ashby Hammond, and he spent a couple of years in net for ourselves. He was brought in for 300k and then eventually sold on for 725k. So when you consider he only had 2 seasons of actual games for ourselves and we still made a profit, then that was a good sign overall. Ian Halford, so he was brought in from Spurs for a couple of seasons on loan. Really good performance throughout. 250k, and then we end up selling for 2.5k. So we got a lot of years out of him for the money. When you look at that, there, 6 seasons for ourselves, and then we made 10 times what we paid for him. He was never going to be special. He was never going to play consistently in the Premier League, so that was a good sale for ourselves. Adam Clark, 75k from Rafe. I thought he was going to be the new left back that we needed. Didn't progress at all. He was then sold on at a loss. No, we sold him on to Barnsley, so we made a profit of 25k. We managed to get rid of him. He wasn't improving at all like we hoped he would, unfortunately. And we found that with left backs throughout the save until we found our eventual left back who would finish the save right now, as he's the best left back in the world. But yeah, so that was pretty much it. I'm looking down now, see if we made any signings on a free who would. Yeah, so we made a few signings here as we moved down who would end up being sold for big money. So we got Che Cooper. He was brought in on a free transfer from Tottenham and then sold for 6 million. So he was a consistent player. He was okay. Really good Championship player, but in the Premier League just couldn't cut it, unfortunately. 6 million to Forest, snapped the hands off. Devontae Midgley, the club captain, probably my favourite signing throughout this entire save. having brought him in on a free transfer whilst in the Championship and to where he is now. Obviously, I haven't sold him, but he is currently about 10 goals off being the club's all-time goal scorer. Is that right? No, yeah, I think it might be actually. Yeah, really, really good player. I mean, look at them stats overall for us. Only dropped below 7 twice. Well, don't count the season, once. So consistency, Mr. Consistency, the captain, Mark Bushkow. So he was signed on it. Sorry, Max Bushkow. He was signed on a free transfer from Germany and sold for 5 million 2 seasons later. So that's another bit of good profit there. He was good. He was a good player, good technical stats. But when you get offered money for players like that, and you think, well, what can I do with that money? Then you end up getting rid of players pretty quickly, as opposed to getting attached to them. So Paul Glatzel, he came in, former Liverpool player, but we actually got him in from Crystal Palace on a free transfer. He was then sold on for 155k. So pretty poor, never really did anything for the club, so he was swiftly moved out of the club. So this is the first season in the Premier League in which we made a loss. So we spent more than we actually took in, which is always going to be the case once you move into the Premier League. You need to start playing against the big boys. So as you can see there, we've gone through a few of them. These are the players that we made a profit on. So Bushkow, Clark. These are the players we then brought in the first season in the Premier League and where they are now. So Van Housden, he's a bit of a wonder kid on the game. We got him from Watford after they got relegated to the Championship. So he'd just been signed by Watford and then he came to ourselves for 13 million. So he had 2 seasons with ourselves. Really good defender, really good physical stats, good defending. However, he was so slow, milk turned quicker. So when the Chinese Premier League come in offering him big money, which I believe is about 70k a week, we couldn't get anywhere near that. So luckily for us, he decided to move on. So we made a good profit on him. Amadou Diallo. So he was brought in for 9.5 million from West Ham. He was here for 2 seasons, but very, very inconsistent throughout. And as you can see, that's why he's moved on to several different clubs in the past as well, because he is inconsistent. And the fact he's English means he keeps getting the moves because of the homegrown status. So we signed him for 9.5 and got 11.5. So we made a £2 million profit on a player 2 seasons. That'll do me. That he's been there. He's helped us out. Bye. Thank you later. So Romana Postima from Groningen, 8 million at the time. You may look at him and think, "Wow, 8 million. That's not very good for a striker." However, he came into the club at 18 million. He scored 21 in 34 and 15 in 32. Absolutely smashed it. Really, really 1 and 2 player in the Premier League. Like, that is really good going. So when you got offered 22.5 million by West Brom, I had a serious decision to make. Unfortunately for him, we just found better players to come in at a better price and then also had better potential. So you may look and think, why are you selling a player who's 1 and 2 in the Premier League? Well, trebling what I paid for him, and also the fact that he's only going to decrease from this point. He's performing well above his station. Yes, he's got 1 and 2 throughout his entire career in Holland. He's got 1 and 2 there, but as soon as we sell him, look what happens. So I feel like we sold Pristine at the right time. We could have kept him around, but it was one of those decisions that I made, and I'll fall on my sword, as it were, if it went wrong, and it didn't, luckily. So Jacob Greaves brought in for 550k from Hull. He was a striker we had, a centre half we had for a number of years. Yeah, so we actually had him for 8 seasons all in all, because we had him on loan for several years, and he was eventually sold to Toronto for 2.5k. So another bit of profit. So I think we've had maybe 3 now where we haven't made a profit, where they've gone on a free transfer or whatever that. I don't often lose players on free transfers. I'll try and get as much money for them as possible. So if I know I'm not going to keep someone on board, I'll do everything I can in order to get rid of them. So Isaac Leslie, so he was brought in from Rochdale for 115k, and then he only had one season here, was loaned out and sold for 4.9k. So 4.9 million. To which you can see he's a championship player, 100%. 22, 21, 16. He's a good championship player. He was someone that my scouts found, and I took a lot of him, and I thought 100k, take the risk, and 115k and sell for 5 million. Who doesn't want that? This is the one I'm proud of, Bryden back. So I found him out in Salzburg on a free transfer. Did a bit of scouting on him, and I thought I'll give him a punt. He wasn't anywhere near this when I brought him in. It was more a case of just what could be. So he was brought in on a free transfer, having, like you said, hardly played, not really performed much, and he ended up having 3 seasons with ourselves, and then was sold to Shakhtar for 21.5 million. So when you get increases like that in profit, it's something that really makes you feel good about this game, and the fact you spend time looking for these players, not just going for them on the transfer list and taking players on, actually actively looking and trying to find players that will improve your squad, and also create your profit in the future. So this is now the second season in the Premier League. So we've once again spent more than we brought in, which is going to be a theme for these 2 seasons. So we've now sold Van Houston, Brannan, Diallo, Cooper. So them 3 there were brought in the season before and then sold on for a profit. So straight away I've sold on players that needed to be sold because of the fact that they were either, I was getting much more than what I paid for them, they weren't consistently playing to the potential they could, and or I just didn't fancy them. This is the player here that I forgot to show you that I'd signed previously. So he had the potential to be one of the best defensive midfielders in my team. However, I don't play defensive midfielders. I tried to turn him into a Mazzara, didn't work. So he was then sold on for £1 million profit the season after. So this is what you're going to often find as you're going through here. You're going to find that lads just come in, you give them a chance, doesn't work out, no problem, see you later. Right, now we're getting into the players who are either still at the club or who I made significant profit on because of the fact that this season, for whatever reason, I just smashed it. I really did smash it in terms of buying players and who was going to make a lot of money for the club. So Brian Strobel, still at the club, 24.5 million, and ever present in the defence. He's worth 59 million, but he's worth a lot more than that if the German national team was done properly and all that. But look at that, just 7, 7, 7, 7, just outrageous stats. Really good centre half. Pelé Murillo, brought in from Real Madrid, the wonder kid, for 14.25 million. He was brought in, and he just wouldn't play out on the left. I wanted to play him out on the left, and he just kept asking to play attacking midfield, and I didn't play attacking midfield in me tactics. So I made the decision that if he's not going to play well out wide, then he has to go. And believe it or not, we ended up getting 45.5 million. So it's 3 times what we bought him for. We're then getting them out the club. It's a no-brainer. It's one of them you think, well, he's a wonder kid. He could potentially get a £45 million player. However, he's gone. Javi Canizales, so he was brought in from Barcelona for 13.5 million. I rated La Masia and found him. I thought I'll take a punt on him. He looks like he's got some good stats, potential for the future. Brought him in, had a couple of good seasons for ourselves without ever playing consistently. 20 games, 5 games. Went to Galatasaray for 21.5 million. So another bit of profit for ourselves. Key Yanni Hoover. So this is the player that Wolves have just bought in real life from Liverpool. Dutch lad, really popular in the squad. Good player. So he's now worth 55 million, and he was brought in originally for 10.25 million. So you can see, well, obviously we haven't sold him, but we've made 5 times essentially what he's worth if we were to sell him for that price. Mattia Civitala. Now I've just sold him this summer, 7.5 million. Didn't want to sell him, I'll be honest. But when you're getting this sort of money offered from China, even with them stats and the goals he scored, you have to get rid of him. A player that could play centre midfield or attacking right. So he was good at having the squad and good at having the bench. 61 million. You have to sell. This is what's pushing it up to the levels of, right, I can now challenge for Europe because of the turnover of players and how much I'm making. Jose Luis Pineda. So this was a player that I potentially didn't want to get rid of. However, he was one that threw the toys at the pram, as it were. So he was just complaining all the time that he wasn't in the starting lineup. He was one of the reasons that I actually got rid of Pastima, because I brought in Pineda. But he was still extremely young at the time, and he wasn't consistent. He was good in patches, but he was never consistent. So he was brought in for 6 million, and then 2 seasons later, after complaining like all the time, I then sold him on for 20 million to Shandong. Which, if you look at his record now, you think, did you make a mistake? Maybe. However, I got 3 times. Sorry, I got 3 times what I paid for him. So no, I didn't make a mistake in that regard. Dale Fry, the captain that we had for a few seasons before we gave it. Sorry about that. Just having a cup of tea. Yeah, sorry. Captain for a few seasons that we had. Solid player. Should have played for England. Never did. Don't know why. But he was brought in for 5.75 million and then sold on to West Ham for 26.5. So 5 times what I paid for him. I'll take that. Yeah, really good player. What's I can say, really? Mr. Consistent. End up leaving because of the fact that it was just time to go. Martin Lucas, left winger, 4.5 million. Really good stats, really good opportunity from a player. However, he just never played for us consistently well. We actually made a loss on him overall. Well, yeah, we did. So £4.5 million paid, and then we recruited about 5 million. Well, no, sorry, I tell a lie, about 4 million. He's now worth 20, so that was a loss. So there's another one of the losses to add to the system. He just didn't fit the club at the time, unfortunately. Aaron Hickey, the young lad from Hearts. So we brought him in for around about 8 million, I think, maybe. 3.8. So we bought him for 3.8 million from Celtic, and he was sold on for 7.5. He was okay. He wasn't the wonder kid that I thought he was going to be and progress like I thought he would be, but these things happen in Football Manager, unfortunately. Ryan Perez, 3.5 million. Brought him in, American International. I thought he looked really good. Never got a game in the second season, so he was just shipped out to the Championship for a profit, where he still is now. Mark Das, the one that got away. So Mark Das now plays for AC Milan, attacking midfielder, as you can see. Really good technicals. However, he kicked up a massive stink when he came to the club. So he came in, only played 6 games because it was his first season in the club, and he wasn't really Mr. Consistent. He then was sold on in my behest to Juventus, which you think, well, they're going to Juventus, they're going to be a good player, and turns out he's progressed to the next level. So yeah, although we made a profit on him, we lost out on a really good player there, unfortunately. But that happens. It happens. As we move on the list, Nico Amaya. This was one I'm really proud of as well. So he was bought for £675. £675, and he's now he's brought in as a 15, 16-year-old, and he's now got 4 goals in 2 games for Austria. And he's going to be a good player, good squad player going forward. So it's a shame that this season's now finished, and FM21 comes out potentially tomorrow. So I won't get to see how he progresses, but he was a really good signing. Agensteiner, I think, obviously he went on to pastures new as well. So he was signed for £525, and he ended up getting sold for 5.2. So £625 and made 5.25 million. That's what you want. I do recommend having a look through Salzburg's reserved team and under 18s each season, because they do have some really good regens who come through there, and that's a potential for the future to look through them. So now we've got 3 signings here. So we've got 3. We'll start with I made three Bosman signings this season, and all 3 were then sold on for higher fees to what they were originally bought for, obviously being free transfers. But 2 of them in particular, I didn't want to sell, but I had to because of the clubs I went to. So Jack Pope, he was brought in from Everton, I think. Is it Everton? No, he sold Everton. So he came on a free transfer from Australia. Played one game. That's right, one game. And Everton came and snapped him up because they thought he was going to be the next big thing. Evidently, he wasn't. He's now playing in Russia. But it's, you buy a player for free and then offer you 11 million. You snap the hands off. Yao Resende from Benfica. So he came in on a free transfer. His record was really good for ourselves when we look back at his record. So 21-11. Then, well, so he scored consistently, put it that way. He was good, but he was never outrageous. And in that third season, when he was dropping off a cliff a bit, to be offered 30 million from Independiente, it's a case of bye bye Resende, bye bye. So I made £30 million on a free transfer, and this one hurt us the most. This is probably the most agonising transfer I had in the entire save. So Lucien Agume, he was brought in on a free transfer from PSG. So he was originally at the start of the game. He's at Inter Milan. He was then sold to PSG back in 2000, whatever it was. There 2021, 7.75 million, and we brought him in on a free transfer. So anyway, so he had two really good. Well, yeah, he was on loan, and he had two really good seasons for ourselves. And then Inter Milan came back in 39 million, and he would not just accept any contract or any sort of avenue of how to make him stay, and that was it. He was gone. So unfortunately, we lost him to Inter Milan, which I would still love to have him around the club now because he was a really good performer for ourselves. But unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Moving it to 26-27 now. So let's have a look. Another season where we spent more than we took in. This tends to happen a lot more now because of the fact that it's Premier League, and unfortunately, it's a case of if you want to stay in the right position, you've got to spend money on the players. It's not a case of the conveyor belt, as it were, as much anymore. However, you do make money on players because of Goumet. So profit, 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 loss, loss, profit, profit. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm pleased with them sales. Although I didn't want to lose a Goumet, I didn't want to lose Pineda, but it was what it was. These are the players that I brought in, and many of them are still here now, which is testament to the fact that these were all good signings. So Wong Chai was brought in for 25, rising to 30. He's now our number one goalkeeper, potentially the best goalkeeper in the world. 53 million, 19 one-on-ones, 18 decisions, 18 determination. Really good, solid goalkeeper. Would probably get about 80 million if I was to sell him, I'll be honest. Carioca, 24, rising to 29.5, 72 million. Our best player. No chance I'm selling him. I'd want over 150 million for Carioca. Freitas, 17.5 million. Nowhere to sell him either. He's our linchpin in the midfield. He's essentially the heartbeat. Probably the best midfielder in the world in the deep line playmaker role. Now that's obviously players like Tony Cruz and stuff like that are now retired. So Martin Westra, 15 million, rising to 20. Wouldn't sell him either. He's another one, Mr. Consistent in the midfield. Can just play a number of positions. You can bring him in and out and play the box-to-box midfielder well as well. When you want to change things up, 20 aggression, class. Really good signing. What else we got here? Lawrence Kagia, 16 million to Zebra. Unfortunately, we had to sell him on because of how many midfielders we had in the midfield. He wasn't getting the game. So I believe did he go for 25 million? Let's have a look. Yeah, so he was bought, but he was on loan for a number of seasons. And then he was bought for 16 million from Zebra. And then sold on eventually 25 million after he was good player still. However, he wasn't going to get a game because of the midfielders I brought in. 25 million. Goodbye, Lorenz. Who else we got here now? So we've got Beto. He's a striker that's still got on board. Really solid player from Brazil. 70 million. The second best striker we've got in the squad. I wouldn't sell him at the moment either. So I'm another drinking my tea. I apologise for that. Bruno Pereira bought him for 15 million. He was then sold the following season. Another one over where he came in, and he was just average to best, and he was just sold on for a profit of 11 million the following season. No brainer, absolute no brainer. So as we continue, Jonathan David, 10.5 million. He was brought in. I've had Jonathan David on previous saves, and he's a really good solid player. Striker, attacking midfield, left wing. If you can get him in for a good fee, I suggest doing so. 10.5 million from Borussia Dortmund was a steal in my opinion. He came in, he played 23 games for the club, and then was sold on for 38. So that just shows you the level of actual possibility you've got with him. Emil Niegbo, so he's a wonder kid that I've brought in. Unfortunately, we lost him to Atletico Madrid because he wasn't playing as many games as he wanted to play. So he then was swiftly moved on for a profit, which, as you can see, is a common theme of this game. They either not playing, they want to go, or I feel like I can get money for them, so they end up going. Thiago, he was brought on a free transfer, never got a single work permit from him, not one, even with all them sort of stats. Gutted, never played one game for the club, 20 determination. Like, look at these stats, man, for a midfielder. Class, absolutely class. And unfortunately, after loaning them out for 3 seasons, it was 21.5 million he was sold on. So, good he didn't play at the club, but you make 21 million on somebody who doesn't play, then that seems a good sign. So, we also brought in Morgan Rogers on a free transfer, which was a really good signing. He's a good wonder kid in the game. Although that wouldn't show you, his goal ratio is really good for ourselves. It's 1 and 2, a bit more than 1 and 2 actually. So take a look at him on future saves. Morgan Rogers, he'll be on for the future. So here we are now in 27-28, and we've actually made more money than we spent. So we're now back into the prospect of making money for the club, which I like to see. I do like to see when you're doing the old Moneyball series. So this is when we've leveled out in the Premier League. We're established players. We're a good team. Do you know what I mean? So as you can see on all them on there. So profit, 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 profit. I forgot we signed João Cancelo from Manchester City on a free transfer. So that was also profit, profit. And these are the players we brought in. So Ansu Fati, still with the club, 46.5 million. Ribas, still with the club. Doku, now he's a wonder kid we brought in from Inter Milan for 23.5 million to fill that left wing space when we got rid of Murillo. Never played well. Wasn't good for us, unfortunately. 6 games, 6.5. To make £11 million profit the following season. I mean, we've ripped Brighton off massively there. So I was pleased with that. Didn't play well for us, unfortunately. It sometimes happens. Now this is our current left back, Jan, 18.5 million, the best left back in the world, no doubt about it. 21-year-old, will only get better. He will never be sold if I stayed in charge of this club. Chris, he was bought in for 18.5 million from LAFC. He was sold this summer to Bayern Munich. He was sold for 60 million. So he played 11 games, no games, on loan, no games. So he's played 11 games for the club, and we've got 60 million from him. Just because he's a wonder kid Brazilian. So he's an infusion centre back now. He was a wonder kid when I signed him, and he's got really good physicals once again, good positioning, but just couldn't get in the centre half position in our club. Sold on for a improvement. Galetta signed from Spurs and then sold on to maybe Juventus. Yeah, Juventus this summer. Didn't want to sell him, but when they're offering 50 million for a player you paid 13.5 for, and he's only played 38 games, you do tend to snap the hands off, and that's what the case happened here. So I'm pleased with that. As we move down, let's have another look. Who else we signed? Reece Nelson. I think we made a profit on Reece. 6.25 million. He was heading into the later years of his career now. So 6.5, played 22 games, sold for 24 million. And these are all real fees. I don't have the editor. I don't have any means of cheating the game. It's just a case of I'm a hard, I'm a hard person to negotiate with when it comes to Football Manager, and I do tend to get the most out of my players. Raymond Criado signed on a free transfer, sold the following season to Bordeaux for how much? Have a look. 15. What? I didn't think it was that much. Yeah, so I signed him on a free transfer, and he was sold on 15 million the following season. He literally came in because he had good prospects, but he was never going to get past Wong Chang and Fernandez, which he never did. Never played a single game for the club. So let's have a look down here. Anyone else that I signed? No free transfers this summer, unfortunately. Horvat, did I sell Horvat on? No, I still got Horvat. He's still prospect. Right. So 28-29. So this is second from last season. So we've made more money once again than what we spent. Lewis likes to see that. So profit, loss. Yeah. So we brought in Gedson Fernandez, still at the club. Ben Beachy, still at the club. Dembele, still at the club. I think Aiden might... No, he's still at the club. Yeah, he's still at the club. This was one that knocked us off a tiny bit. So I tried to get him on a free transfer. So his contract was running out the season before. He was on a free transfer to Southampton, but I couldn't speak to him because of the fact that we were in England. And he nicked off to Portland on a free transfer. So I was hacked off for that. However, he had a release clause in his contract, so I ended up bringing him back to England for 13 million. I don't think he's going to get much better than... I think he's already on the downward slide. But if I was going to stay, I'd probably try and get rid of him this summer. We've been worth 41.5 million. Marco Fernandez should be an excellent goalkeeper. But because he just can't get past Wong Chan for whatever reason. Like, Wong Chan's the best goalkeeper in the world, and you've got to play like that. I'll probably end up selling him in the future if I was to stay. So now, because it's last season, there's very few players in here that we've actually sold. Yves Cisse brought in on a free transfer. Now worth 60 million. Solid player. He's now centre half with Strobel, which is why we then decided to get rid of Chris. Like I said before. Anyone else? Yeah, so just we've been through them. And then the final season. So this is the season that we're currently at. Nearly just got underneath the break and even kind of thing. But profit, loss. Just I absolutely love this game. I can't wait for the new one to do this again. So this is where we're currently at now. All these players are in the club. He's going to be one for the future. I've showed him previously. Yuri Jagic, 21-year-old, and look at them traits there. Really good player, solid. Really going to be a solid player for the club. Free transfer. So if I was to stay, he'd be the number one midfielder in the future with Freitas, I imagine. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a chance to see. What else? Julian Bayer. Probably the best European player in the world. I started spending crazy money on players because I had crazy money in the bank because of the sales. Like, for example, buying Ryan Sharp. So we've got the best left back in the world in Gian, and I ended up signing Ryan Sharp for 40 odd million because of the fact that he's English and plays left back and he's got loads of potential. So we'll have to see what happens with him. Well, we won't see, but I imagine he would go on to do okay for the club. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Any more questions about the club or where we're at now in terms of finances and stuff like that, just let me know and I'll do another Facebook video. Sorry, another YouTube video. Another YouTube video. I've got no debt apart from transfer debt, which everyone's got transfer debt. I wonder if you can find out where you are in terms of richness in the world. I'm sure it's on here somewhere, but never mind. Then that's it. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Any questions or anything like that, just pop them in the comments below, and I shall see you in FM 2021. My first season, my first save in the beta will be Newcastle United, as always, being my hometown club and the team I support. So I imagine I can do better than Cabbage Head and get them into an actual top half finish. So thank you and good night.